But let's begin with that Penn State child abuse scandal. We're going to be talking to the attorney for one of the alleged victims in just a moment. But first, NBC's Peter Alexander is at Penn State with the latest. Peter, good morning.
And good morning to you. It was an emotionally exhausting weekend here at Penn State University, but the investigation into child sexual abuse here presses forward, with Pennsylvania's governor encouraging any other alleged victims of former defensive coordinator Jerry Sandusky to come forward and contact authorities.
As Penn State students head back to class this morning, this tight-knit community is still reeling from horrific charges of child sexual abuse and an alleged university cover-up. Late Sunday night, President Obama spoke out from Hawaii.
What happened at Penn State indicates that at a certain point, folks start thinking about systems and institutions and don't think about individuals. Evil can thrive in the world just by good people standing by and doing nothing.
These are the Penn State locker room showers, where then graduate assistant Mike McQueary told a grand jury he witnessed former defensive coordinator Jerry Sandusky sexually abusing a boy in 2002. Pennsylvania Governor Tom Corbett, who as Attorney General in 2009 began the investigation into Sandusky, said on Meet the Press Sunday that McQueary should have done more.
He met the minimum obligation of reporting it up, but did not, in my opinion, meet a moral obligation that all of us would have.
Prosecutors wanted Sandusky's bail to be set at $500,000 and that he be required to wear a leg monitor. But District Court Judge Leslie Dutchcott ordered Sandusky be freed on $100,000 and pay nothing unless he failed to show up for a court hearing. Judge Dutchcott is now under scrutiny because her online profile says she's a volunteer for Sandusky's children's charity, the Second Mile. Saturday's football game, the first since 1965 without legendary coach Joe Paterno at the helm, was at times somber. Nearly 108,000 fans fell silent to honor the victims of sexual abuse, players taking a knee before the game even began. And after Penn State's heartbreaking loss, this emotional message from Paterno's son Jay on ESPN.
Dad, I wish you were here. We love you.
All weekend, the Penn State faithful paid visits to Paterno's State College home, leaving behind mementos for the man who stepped out of the public eye after nearly a half-century as the proud symbol of this university.
NBC News has attempted to contact Judge Dutchcott, but so far she has been unavailable for any comment. Former Penn State University Vice President Gary Schultz and former Athletic Director Tim Curley, both charged with perjury and failure to report what they know, are scheduled to make their first appearances in court this Thursday. Schultz, Curley, and Sandusky all deny the allegations against them. Matt?
All right, Peter Alexander, thank you very much. NBC News has uncovered some videotape of Jerry Sandusky talking about his relationship with children, and given the charges against him, it's rather startling. NBC's national investigative correspondent Michael Isikoff has more on this. Michael, good morning.
Good morning, Matt. Years before he was charged with sex abuse, Jerry Sandusky spoke with great passion about his work with children. They're words that take on a very different meaning today.
How did it all start? Basically, because I'm a frustrated playground director, I guess.
That's Jerry Sandusky in an NBC News interview back in 1987. In light of the child sex abuse charges now filed against him, it's a disturbing look into the man at the center of the Penn State scandal.
I enjoy being around children, and I enjoy their enthusiasm. I just have a good time with them.
At the time of the NBC News profile, Sandusky was a pioneering defensive coach under the legendary Joe Paterno. He turned down head coaching jobs at other schools to continue his work, he said, with the Second Mile, the charity he founded to help troubled kids.
Everybody needs people to care for them. Sometimes they don't want it. Sometimes they don't understand what you're trying to do, but they want to be disciplined. Kids are growing up awfully fast today.
But now Sandusky is charged with 40 counts of child sex abuse over a 13-year period. He's out on a $100,000 bond and denies any wrongdoing.
It isn't what happens to you that's important. It's how you react to it.
A decade after the NBC News profile, police first investigated Sandusky for allegedly showering with and touching a young boy in the Penn State locker room. A grand jury report says that investigators from local and university police listened in as the boy's mother confronted him. "I was wrong," Sandusky told her. "I wish I were dead." But no charges were filed. A year later, Sandusky, at age 55, announced he was retiring from coaching to work more on the Second Mile charity. Lou Prado, a Penn State sports historian who has known Sandusky for years, thought that was strange.
Surprised. Everybody's surprised. But it seemed natural that he'd want to go spend more time with the kids because he had this great kid. He wanted to expand it, raise more money.
One of the biggest things would be the trust that would be developed. What we're trying to be is what we think to be is a true friend.
But now, with the charges that he sexually abused 8 young boys, all of whom he met through the Second Mile charity, there is outrage over the damage Sandusky is alleged to have done to the children and Penn State University.
What I think of him now, I can't tell you what I'd like to do to him if I could get him. He's ruined Penn State.
The circumstances surrounding Sandusky's retirement and what Penn State officials may have known about his conduct over the years is now a central focus of the investigation. And?
All right, Michael Isikoff, thank you so much this morning. Ben Andreozzi is an attorney who represents one of the alleged victims, and Jeff Dion is with the National Center for Victims of Crime. Good morning to both of you gentlemen.
Good morning, Ann.
Ben, I know there's a limited amount of what you can actually say publicly about your client, but what can you tell us about him in terms of how old he is and what his story is?
And I can't release personal information that would actually give the public an opportunity to identify who he is, but I can tell you the emotions and give you an idea of what he's going through right now. And I think it's important to understand that him, and I assume as well as many of the other victims, they've got a real complex emotional response to what's going on right now. It's important to understand that these folks were involved in the Penn State football community. They were on the sidelines of football games. They were spending significant amounts of time traveling with the team and or in the locker room with the team and getting to know members of that football team. So to say that he's torn apart, I think would be an emotion that would really explain where he's at right now.
So what are his emotions then watching these allegations devastating Penn State? Are you suggesting that because he's tied into having watched and been connected to the football program through these experiences, that he has a deeper level of emotions that may be hard for us to fathom?
And that's exactly what I'm saying. I think it's the general public may think that a abused victim in his position would automatically have feelings of negative towards the university. And while I think he's very disappointed in the way that members of the university community handled his situation or the situation involving the cover-up, it's a complex issue. And we need to understand he's got a variety of thoughts that are going through his head right now in light of the situation. He was interwoven into this Penn State football community.
Are you suggesting he feels not only the pain of this, but also some guilt?
I think that's fair to say, Ann. If you look at sexual assault victims, it's very difficult for them to come forward. And I think it's fair to say that the victims could be thinking to themselves right now, as a result of myself coming forward, look at what's happened to this football program.
Is he at all comforted by the fact that the nation is so outraged that he and other boys were not protected, at least according to these allegations?
And I think it's fair to say that sexual assault victims in general are comforted by the movement that we've seen. I can tell you right now, and though there are negative responses as well. So it's really a complicated issue. I know that he does appreciate the fact that the general public is concerned for him.
Jeff, does this case, as you look at it, fit the pattern of a predator as has been alleged in the case of Jerry Sandusky?
Absolutely, Ann. Predators often seek out and sometimes create organizations that will give them access to children, particularly children that would be vulnerable to specialized attention from an adult that they look up to. And that's why organizations need to be absolutely vigilant about who's in their midst.
Do we have any sense that all of these boys, Ben, have access now to counseling? or is that still, and have they been able to get together, and would that possibly help their healing?
You know, and I don't think that I can speak for all the victims, but I can say that the people that have come forward to me, that we have been strongly recommending that they get in some trauma therapy, and that's encouraged that they do that, you know, immediately. Unfortunately, there have been organizations throughout the country who have reached out and agreed to provide free counseling for these victims.
Well, that's indicative of how many Americans feel, Ben, that they want these kids to be okay. Ben Andreozzi and Jeff Dion, thank you so much, both of you, for joining us this morning.